Hey everyone, welcome to Watch It Paint It. In today's video, we're going to be painting, yes, a new game. Hype. Seventh Continent is finally here. I've been waiting for this game forever, like 2 years, I think it feels like. So it's going to be the first miniature from the game we paint on the channel. And we're going to start with Victor Frankenstein. This is the character that I am currently playing in the game. If you don't know anything about the game, it's very similar to those books I used to read as a kid. It makes me feel a bit nostalgic, you know, those choose your own adventure books. Turn to this page if you choose this, turn to that page if you choose that. It's probably oversimplifying the game, but it feels very like that, and the game's awesome. If you've not seen it, go and check out the game. It's probably my favorite game at the moment, and I've put 8 hours into it, which is a lot for me. Normally I put 0 hours into games, so it's nice to play a game. Anyway, let's begin painting this miniature. I'm not going to prime it in the rattle can airbrush sense. I'm not going to be using a spray-on primer. I'm going to be using Vallejo's game color range, and these work as a paint as well as a primer all in one. And the reason I'm doing that is this miniature is the smallest miniature I've ever seen in my entire life. This is insanely small. I'm holding it as close to the camera, so hopefully it's in focus and you can sort of see what I'm doing. But I'm starting with Vallejo's Pale Flesh. I'm going to be painting on Frankenstein's face and his 2 hands. I'm going to be using KHAKI or KHAKI. Every time I use this color, I have to say both words both ways because I don't know how you pronounce it or if it differs in country. But that's just going to be for his trousers, and there's a teeny bit of leg poking through on either side, and then you've got to sort of try and get up his crotch with your brush and paint the inside of his leg, so you can see that. And depending on how closely people look at your models, you will notice that. The next color, and this is going to be the majority of the model, this is Sombre Grey. It's a very pale bluey grey color, and I'm going to be applying that over his entire trench coat. It looks a bit dodgy. This miniature has got quite the stance. He looks like he's dabbing or he's about to one-handed flash somebody, so it's a little bit weird and a little bit creepy that I've paid that much attention to the miniature as I've painted it, as this is my character. Now I'm a bit hope my friends don't notice what this guy looks like. But not to worry. The whole way through this, I'm going to be using either Redgrass Games 00 brush. That's their sort of detail brush, and it's small enough to do the majority of this miniature. I'm going to use Army Painter's Insane Detail brush for some of it. I'm going to try and paint on his eye further into it, and a bit of the detail at the end. But for the base coat, just this Redgrass Games 00 brush is going to do all the work. Now all this paint's pretty watered down. It's probably about 25% water, I'd say. I've thinned it enough to go on, but it was only taking. I'm basically just going to do one coat and then the wash that I'm going to apply afterwards. And that's, again, it's just a miniature so small. Some of the detail is minute, and the more layers of paint I'm going to get put on, the more it's just going to completely disappear. I'm going to use Vallejo's. It's going to be Vallejo's entire paint range for all of it, just because I wanted that the property, the ability to do the primer and base coat in one. So I'm using their black, and this is just for his shoes. But I'm also going to be painting the base in black. So I'm being incredibly inaccurate around his shoes on the base, but I'm being very, very careful near the khaki that I've already painted his trousers in. And then I'm just going to use up some more paint and spread that around the base, and that's going to work at, basically, it's not staying this color, so I'm going to use that as a primer, as well as just in case you can see through any of the paint I put on top. It's going to look nice and black and realistic flooring. I'm also going to use the black to do his hair. He's got his little Victor Frankenstein black hair. Looks a little bit creepy as well. And it's also got 2 eyebrows, which again, I'm going to use this 00 brush. You can see, and it's going to keep coming into focus on the camera. You can see I'm wearing my magnifying glass for most of this work, to be honest. It's just so small, and my eyes are not what they used to be. I can't actually see this miniature's eye with my naked eyes. I need a magnifying glass, even though I've painted it. I think by the end of the video, I've painted it reasonably well, but I can't see that. I'm playing the game yesterday. I can't see his eyes. Showed my friends. They can't tell it's there. Our eyes are too low a resolution, but the game comes with a magnifying glass, so anytime you want, you can have a little look at his eye. Also, when you take a picture of it, you can zoom in and have a look. So he's also carrying this bone crowbar, and I'm going to paint that in white. And then for the shade, I was thinking about using all of Army Painter's different color shades, getting more realistic tones on things. So I could use a blue shade on his coat and light shade on his face. But I ummed and ahed for a while, and then I just thought, you know what, this miniature is so small. You want it to be as poppy as you can be, just to bring out the detail where it can. So a nice, really dark black survivor skin or the dark tone wash is it. So I'm going to be very, very careful and apply this to make sure it doesn't pull anywhere I don't want it to. So I'm really aiming for the recesses. Even when it pulls in the recesses, I just want a medium amount. I found that a lot of it pulled in his elbow crease, and I had to just keep slurping some of that up. So once that's dried, and that did take a while, I in fact painted a campfire while the wash was drying. So that's how small these miniatures are. I painted a different miniature while I just waited for the wash to dry. But once that is dry, as I mentioned, I'm getting my insane detail brush. I've got the same pale flesh from Vallejo back out, and now I've quite heavily watered down, at least 50% water, and I'm going to apply 2 or 3 layers, really, really thin highlights to his flesh. So on his face, 3 layers on his nose, and maybe 1 or 2 on his forehead to bring out a bit of light shining off the top of his head and his nose. And then off camera, I had to do this because there's no way I could do it on camera. Painted in his eyes, pupil, that staple on. He's got like a scar across his head and a staple, so I painted that in silver, so that pops out and gives a little bit more to it. And I've painted the thinnest red line I could. That was just Abomination Gore by the Army Painter, and I just painted a thin red line across his head just to mark in that scar. And as I said, I can't see that. That is not there to me in real life, but you know, in the pictures and the video when I zoomed in there, you can see it. So depending how good your eyes are, that's definitely worth doing. Now, I didn't paint in this other eye. There's no way I could get to it at the angle I would have needed, and you can't see it anyway. It's in the shade, so I think it's fine. It's up to you, and honestly, I can't see the eye, so don't worry if you can't paint it. Then I'm going to use Sombre Grey. Again, heavily watered down. All of these highlight layers are going to be heavily watered down. This, again, 50% water, maybe even 75% water. Nice and thin. And you can see as I'm applying it, it's going on super bright, but once that dries, it's barely noticeable from the layer underneath. So it's going to take, again, 1 to 3 layers, depending which part it is. And I'm just going along and I'm painting a thin line of this Sombre Grey on every single crease. And his jacket's heavily creased. And I'm painting around all of those recesses, leaving that a nice dark blue / black shadow in the recess. And there's a lot of little bits. There's just tons. His sleeve's got so many crumples in it, and I'm just trying to catch each one. I'm going around the collar, around the back of his neck, and getting the top level and doing a edge highlight along that. And then for the khaki on his pants, you can this is it. 4 thin, heavily watered down strokes on the bits you can see on his trousers. And then I'm going to get the white primer back out for his bone crowbar. And again, it's just sort of edge highlighting the tops of both segments of that bone. I don't know what you call the bit of the bone. And then I'm just going to paint a line down the spiky bit, and then the back, I'm just going to mirror it. I'm just going to do it exactly the same, and that's as simple as it is. Nothing too special to that. I'm not going out of my way to make white look amazing, but the miniature's tiny. Nobody's going to notice. To some extent, I have noticed playing this game, we always move together. We're all together as a big horde. I don't really even notice the miniature. So in a way, it's a bit like, why even bother painting? Let me know if you've painted or played the game below, and if you find that you're just moving as a horde and don't really ever pay attention to the miniature. We hardly even move, so we hardly ever touch the miniatures. We seem to be in one spot discussing it a lot. Let me know if that's just because we're new to the game and we're a bit slow. I'm going to use Army Painter's Necromancer Cloak, my go-to black highlight, and I'm going to paint in each individual strand of his hair, along with a little bit on his eyebrows, and I'm going to paint the toe cap and heel of his shoes. Then I'm going to use Citadel's STIRLAND Mud, and you could see I thought I'd applied a teeny tiny bit to the back of that miniature, and it was absolutely huge. It was like nowhere near as much as I would normally take for a miniature, and I just couldn't work with it. It was way too much on the brush. So I've wiped it off on the back, and I'm just going to keep scooping that up and building up a thin layer. I'm going to do about 2 layers of this, all in one go though, while it's nice and wet, but I'm going to apply a thin layer and then build it up from there once I've got it all around his feet ever so carefully. And if you're not used to STIRLAND Mud, it's going to dry and look a little bit muddy. It's going to be all bumpy. It's a texture paint by Citadel, so it's this deep dark brown and it's got sort of blobs in it. Then after that, I'm going to matte varnish all of him and gloss varnish the base, as well as I stuck in a little bit of a rock that I got from Gatehouse Gaming UK. They do loads of scenery sort of basing material, and that just thought fitted. Right scale, looked quite nice. I'll leave a link in to everything in the description below, as I always do, and that's how it is. It's 24 minutes, guys. I don't know if I need to paint these miniatures, but for 24 minutes, I'm going to paint these miniatures. Let me know in the comments below if you'd like to see some more. Here's that campfire I was talking about. I painted that while the wash dried, and it's not the best fire I've ever seen in my life, but it took like, what, 15 minutes or something? Let me know if you'd like to see a tutorial for that. Please do subscribe to this video. Do let me know in the comments if you'd like to see more. It's the only way I know if you want to see more of this game, guys. So, you know, make some noise if you want to see it. Thank you all ever so much for watching. Don't forget, massive thank you to all the Patreons as always. And there's a special offer on at the moment. If you subscribe to Patreon, $10 or more, there's a limited edition brush beam that will be posted out to you. Offer ends in start of July. Thank you all ever so much for watching. I'll see you again next week.